Hello, and welcome to the GrapeSEED official podcast. I'm Mr. Sawin, and I'm excited to be here for another episode of the pod. Today we're continuing with our new format that we're calling What Will You Do? Teachers in Unit 7 and above may know that language from the chant Yes, I Will, where students learn how to say what they will or won't do. What we will do today is turn the mic towards you, the listeners. Our goal? To give you a chance to consider what you would do in a couple of different classroom situations. Now, there may not be one right answer, but I really want you to put yourself out there and in the comfort of your preferred mode of transportation, be it train, plane, or automobile. Answer as though I'm right there with you. Don't worry about any looks of concern from your fellow passengers. In fact, they may benefit from your years of wisdom. So, when the time comes, I'll leave a little space for you to speak. And if you need more time, just pause this recording. When you're done, I'll tell you what I would do, and we can celebrate our similarities and learn from our differences. So, dear listeners, let us begin. It's bright and early on Monday morning, everyone's favorite day of the week, and you've just arrived at school. Kids are playing outside before their classes begin, and you ascend or descend the stairs to your classroom to set up for the day. You pull out the day's lesson plan and think to yourself, almost halfway through another unit. Time flies. You think about each of your students and how they're doing. You're always monitoring their progress, but there is one student who is just so quiet you can't quite tell what they need help with. You make a note that you should do some formative assessment with them today. That meaning you'll ask them one of the questions from the lesson plan or one of the quick checks from the teacher's manual to see how they're coming along. You make a note of it on your plan, and before you know it, class has already begun. Partway through the lesson, you spot your note from this morning. You read the story using the pictures and your body language to convey as much meaning as possible. When you finish, you ask the questions from the lesson plan and then shift your attention to the quiet student. You call their name and ask them the middle exposure question from the quick checks. And then you watch as their eyes go wide. They must not have been paying attention because you've clearly caught them by surprise, and you can see their affective filter is rising. So, listeners, I ask you this: what will you do? Yeah, that seems like a reasonable approach. Here's what I'm thinking. We talk a lot about the affective filter in GrapeSEED because if students don't feel comfortable and safe in class, then no matter how good we are at teaching the content, students are not going to be able to absorb it. This is why we do so much formative assessment. It keeps the affective filter low and also tells the teacher what students need to grow. It's important that we do this type of assessment, and it shouldn't be scary for students. Ideally, it would be fun. In this case, the student was surprised for some reason that we're not aware of. It's also possible that they were just very shy, and speaking in front of their peers is a scary thing to do. There are a lot of ways we can approach a student like this. If it's the case that the student was just surprised, then you can give them a moment to think while you hear what another student has to say. But what if the question is just too challenging? Well, then you can always step down the difficulty. Look at a question like, when is it nice to wear a t-shirt? This is from Unit 7. If this is too difficult for a student, we can ask a follow-up question like, is it nice to wear a t-shirt when it's cold? Students may agree or disagree. Either way, now we're having a conversation. If students can respond with a yes or no to that, then you can step it back up to, so when is it nice to wear a t-shirt? When it's cold or when it's hot? This final question is a step below the original question in terms of difficulty, but that's fine. As teachers, we now know that this student still needs more time and practice to acquire this language. Knowing that only empowers us to better support our students. So we've considered what to do if the question was too abrupt or too challenging. But what if the student is just too shy? In my experience, shy students don't like to stand out that much. Controversial opinion, I know. For example, I knew some students that had excellent pronunciation in their GrapeSEED classes, but they would put on an accent when speaking English in front of non-GrapeSEED peers in their middle school, for example. They didn't want to stand out too much, so they did what they had to blend in. Students like these may benefit from answering questions together with their peers. When you want to check on how they're doing, you can have them respond as part of a small group and listen in for their voice. To make calling out groups of students easier, you can label seating areas with different things that students are familiar with. For example, you could make several green squares, blue triangles, and purple circles, and tape those to students' chairs. For students beyond Unit 10 where they've already learned their shapes, you could use the shape names to call on a group of students. For students below Unit 10, you can use the colors. If you have a carpet or story area where students sit, then you can put down animals or foods that students know to mark where they should sit and use those to call on groups as well. This also doubles as a way to keep students from distracting one another by ensuring good spacing on the carpet. To get back to the topic at hand though, our student is surprised and their affective filter is rising. There's a lot we can do to help this student, but my question is, why did this happen in the first place? In an ideal world, all our students would be very comfortable with taking risks and making mistakes because that's where all of the best learning happens. But we don't live in an ideal world. Students have experiences that follow them throughout their education that we can't see or know.
Goodbye, my friends, goodbye. I'm sad to say goodbye. It was a good day, but now I will say goodbye, my friends, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.